Hi. Do get ready with me while I talk about my journey of becoming a face yoga teacher and becoming a face card queen. I'm gonna record this in two parts. The first part is gonna be getting into the face yoga, getting into the body yoga, and then the second part is gonna be all about face yoga. I thought I would hop on here real quick to let y'all know how I got into face yoga, how I became a face yoga teacher, because it's been a minute since I did a little self-intro, so that's what we're doing today. I'm Kai. If we haven't met before, I am going to be your favorite face yoga teacher if I'm not already. I am a 200-hour certified vinyasa yoga teacher. I also just completed my face yoga teacher certification. So I'm doing like a H to T, head to toe body yoga. Before we get started, I'm just gonna put on some moisturizer. My journey into face yoga has been quite the non-linear experience, I would say, just like how life is very non-linear. And the journey started around 2018. 2018, I was living in New York and I was just coming off of a job. I had just traveled internationally and didn't really have a full-time offer for me to come back to. And that's when I was really coming to yoga as this like place of refuge almost, where I was really getting a lot of grounding. I was feeling really anxious during that time in my life. And so yoga was really helping me to just find that grounding, find that earth like element in my life. And so that's how it started. And so in 2018, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a 200-hour yoga teacher training program. Not really thinking that I was gonna become a teacher. I was really doing it to deepen my practice and also just to figure out stuff about myself. I've always been the type of person where I think that our bodies contain a lot of answers and our bodies contain a lot of information if we're willing to listen. So it was during that time, this was also like pre-transitioning, where I was just really looking for a lot of answers of who I am, what my identity is, like how do I want to keep living forward. And honest to God, I was super depressed. I was really depressed from 2009 until 2019, 2020. Just because this was like pre-transition and I was having a lot of gender dysphoria, but I didn't get it because I was just like, I'm queer, or I'm non-binary, and then fast forward later, she's a doll. So I was looking to yoga really to figure out more about myself, right? It's a really introspective practice. It also really takes into account the like spiritual aspect of practicing a physical practice. A lot of people will say that yoga is like a moving meditation, which I think is really accurate because not only is it, like stretches and holds and like sweating in these very static poses, but it's also being super aware of like where your hip is in relation to your ankles, or being aware of where your mind is when you're working out. I think a lot of times when people work out, we're really trying to escape the day-to-day. And so to understand like why you're doing the yoga, what it is that you're gaining from it is a beautiful part of the practice. And I could have become like a HIIT instructor. I could have become like any other instructor, but I was like, I think yoga is going to be the one. So 2018, I did a lot of research. I went to so many different like yoga teacher training orientations. This was when I was living in New York, and I went to Yoga to the People, RIP. I went to Yoga Vita, which was another one of my favorite studios. I went to Laughing Lotus, also another favorite. And then there was another one that my friend recommended, which was like a yoga teacher training like somewhere else, right? Which sounds fab. Take me on a vacation, take me somewhere on like tropical island and learn yoga, right? But as I was listening to all the different programs and what they were all offering, I realized that even though going somewhere to do a yoga teacher training sounds fab, I also wanted to give myself enough time to absorb the knowledge. And these remote programs were usually anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, so super accelerated program compared to a lot of other programs that take place over the course of 3, 4, 5, even 6 months. And I think when it comes to education, when it comes to knowledge, like I've taken classes in like a summer class setting where it's super intense and super like concentrated. I've also taken classes in situations where it is longer. And I do think that having that longevity just allows you to absorb the knowledge a little bit better, so that you're not just like trying to cram everything in and then later on you're like, oh, what did I learn, right? And so eventually I decided to go with Laughing Lotus because that was really a fit for me. I was really vibing with the teachers. They also had a very wholesome curriculum on the like physical practice of yoga, the anatomy, how to teach, how to bring in that spiritual aspect. Some studios stay away from the spiritual aspect. Some studios decide to add a little bit more of their own judge. So you really just have to find the studio that works for you and the teachers that vibe for you. I would say that with yoga teacher training, a lot of it is like the teachers that you vibe with and the studio that you vibe with. And so that would be like my first recommendation if you're like interested in that path of finding the studio that vibes with you. Don't just go to any random yoga studio. Don't find the cheapest one, but really choose the one that's going to be worth your time and money, because it's not just a certification, right? It's about this introspective therapeutic practice with yourself that you can find a lot of interesting answers. So that would be my first recommendation. Moisturizer on, sunscreen is on. Next thing I'm gonna do is my foundation. And so 2018, I decided to enroll in the Laughing Lotus teacher training program, 200 hours. I think it took place from like September to December, I want to say. Friday, Saturday, Sunday of every week. Plus, so Friday was like 3 hours. Saturday, Sunday, it was like full day, like 6 to 8 hours. And on top of that, we also had to go to class twice a week so that we would really understand what they were teaching us. And then on top of that, we also had study buddies. And so we had to meet with our study buddy, I think it was once a week or once every other week, and go over the material that we're learning in class. So it was quite an intensive practice, I would say. Thankfully, I wasn't working a full-time job then, and I had just started my freelance marketing career. So it ended up working out from like a time management standpoint. Because if I was working a full-time job, which some of these other people would or were, I don't know how they did it, honestly. I could have barely did the yoga teacher training on its own. And I did that. It was a beautiful program, lots of different types of people who were like just college graduates all the way up to people who were like 40, 50, trying to explore a different practice for themselves. And yeah, it was a beautiful program. I went through a lot of introspective change. I went through a lot of self-discovery through the process and really made a lot of beautiful connections with a lot of people. I think when you're going through such an intense program like that, you really start to be vulnerable and open yourself up, because it is one of those things where it's like you're gonna get what you put in, and if you're closed off to the process, you're probably not gonna get as much out of it. I'm gonna go grab a mirror. Beautiful process, cried a lot. This was 2008. And then from there, I started to do like private classes. I started to do one-off teaching, and then I started to do the volunteer program, the volunteer teaching at my yoga studio, which was really for the new teachers to get more comfortable with teaching, more comfortable with kind of their own style of teaching, because everyone has their own style, right? I remember for my graduation, because we all were put into like little groups within the bigger teacher training, and so I had a group of 5 other kids, or 5 other people, and our mentor was this like super cute guy, Dorian. He was like maybe 5'2", 5'3", just like very active, very kind. I remember one of the things that he told us was that he doesn't like to use the words like push or pull, which can feel aggressive in a yoga class, right? Something that might be used instead is reach for, or stretch, or elongate, which has a little bit of a better kind of feel to it. And on the last day of graduation, he gave each of us a little gift and a little like chakra oil for the chakra that he thought would be the best fit for us. And he gave me my throat chakra so that I could find my voice, because back then I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really have my own voice. I was really afraid of just like making a mistake in these yoga classes. I felt like I needed to say all the right things and hit on all the points, and I would just get so nervous before these classes. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but I think I was just carrying so much that I made it a big deal for myself. And so I did that. I did a little bit of training, and then pandemic happened. That was, we all know how that was. And so the pandemic happened. I moved to LA, and in LA, I started my transition, which was like life-saving, truly. If I didn't transition, I don't think I would be here right now. And thank you to Gender Affirming Care. Thank you to all the Black trans women who have made it possible for me to live like this, because I started transitioning like with mail to order hormones, right? Which is crazy. Like you wouldn't have been able to do that 5-10 years ago. But now we have these offerings because of capitalism where people can order their hormones online and just get it to their door. You don't have to go see a doctor. It doesn't have to be such like a big deal in that way. And so I started my transition, and I was teaching yoga in LA, but very sporadically because I was working a full-time job at the time. I was transitioning. I was like basically birthing myself, and so I didn't really have a lot of time to teach yoga. And so a year, maybe 2 years into living in LA, I quit my job. I quit my tech job because it was not giving. It was, I'll do another episode on this, but I just got really bullied at my job, and there were certain people who said some transphobic things, and I decided that at that point I had to leave because I was no longer working at a company that was really serving my community, but instead trying to capitalize off my community and not even thinking about the community. Like, it was for queer and trans people, but there was no queer and trans people on the leadership team, which just like fucked me up. Okay, I'm not gonna erase anyone. So there was one queer and trans person on the leadership team, but I know that she got shafted from what I've heard. So it was just like, it was giving toxic. And so I left that job, and for about a year, I was just like soul searching. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was doing a little bit more private classes. I was meeting up with people that I made connections with online and teaching yoga in the park and people's houses. And I was really not trying to go back to a full-time job because I was just tired of that life. I was tired of having to do the 9-to-5 clock in for the job that's not even secure, right? I think the pandemic really taught us that like, just because you have a full-time job doesn't mean it's safe, doesn't mean that you're safe from being fired, from losing your job, from getting less pay. So that's when I discovered face yoga. And face yoga, I first heard about it through my mom, who I think heard about it through her friend at her temple. This face yoga thing, I was like, okay, seems interesting, right? Especially living in LA where like people were getting Botox and filler and getting work done on their face, but also for the girls, for the trans girls. We're all moving towards that FFS. If you don't know what FFS is, it's facial feminization surgery. And it's a face surgery that a lot of trans women or non-binary women or even cis women will get to basically feminize your face. And obviously that's a really intensive process, right? You're cutting up your face, you're drilling bone down, you're pulling on things, you're taking scalp from the back, moving it to the front. And obviously the end goal is to, you know, look more feminine so that we're safer in public, so that we feel good about ourselves, so that when we look in the mirror, we don't have that gender dysphoria. And in that process, I was really seeing that face yoga could be a nice little or like supplement or complement to FFS, right? I don't think face yoga on its own will get the results of FFS because one is surgery and one is exercise. And if we think about anything else, like getting a BBL versus working your ass off to get a big butt, like two totally different things. And so it wasn't necessarily something that I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this instead, or I'm gonna recommend this instead, but what can you do with it? We pay so much attention to our bodies, we work our bodies out, we really take pictures of our bodies, but then when it comes to like cosmetics, we pay more attention to our face, which I thought was interesting. Like skincare of the face is so much bigger than skincare for the body, but then working out your body is so much bigger than working out your face. And so I was like, okay, there has to be something in the middle, right? Where we're like working our face out, because no matter how many creams and ointments and things that you put on your face, there's only so much that you can do on product. And so it really is about muscle manipulation and really getting in tune with the muscles of your face. And I was like, okay, the girlies are, this was also like a couple years ago, so like people were starting to dissolve their filler, people were starting to get rid of their BBLs, like the whole thick girl trend was starting to wane down and everyone was starting to get skinny again. And it was also the age where like people were, or the age, it was also the time where people were starting to, you know, move away from Botox and move away from filler and trying to find these like natural or like undetectable ways. So I was like, boom, face yoga, that's the key. People are gonna be into it because it's a natural and authentic way to really elevate your face card and to really get to that place where you build more self-awareness around your face. We do a lot of this with our phones and crane our necks, and that causes a double chin. If you're a smoker, you have these smoker lines. If you're squinting a lot to look at a screen, like that causes, you know, stress and tension in your eye areas. So we work out these 57 muscles in the face, crazy, I know, a lot more than we think we do. And so why not train it, right? Why not become aware of how we can work our face so that when we are doing, you know, when we are squinting or when we are reading a book, we can correct ourselves a little bit more. Just like how when you're picking up something heavy, you don't go from your back, right? You crouch down and you lift from your legs. It's the same exact concept. Next time when you're looking at something far away, maybe you're not doing this one. Maybe you're working on getting some prescription lenses so you can see something far away. That's how I really was like, okay, this is it. This is the future. And people are going to be really into this, especially the celebs, right? Because the celebs are always worried about their face card because they're always getting photos taken. Some of them are actresses and actors. Like, face is everything. Manifesting that I'm gonna get some celebrity clients in 2025. Let me at least share this practice with the dolls. A little gloomy. I think it's gonna rain today. Mother, she introduced me to this lady called Fumiko Takatsu, who developed the face yoga method. This is certified, her stuff, copyright, trademark, bizazz. I was like, okay, slay. Like, she has this whole training program to apply and get into the program, and it's about 6 months, self-paced. So I was like, okay, this seems like the place to go. I am trying to figure out this next phase of my career. I would love to be at a place where I'm working for myself and not for someone else and building their wealth. I want to start building my wealth, right? My generational wealth. And so I signed up for the program, and the program was amazing. The program was so interesting in terms of like how much I learned about the face, how much I learned about different exercises and poses and stretches that you could do with your facial muscles. And I do think that my face card has improved over the last few months. Water break. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pause here